I 24F, work at a small company where everyone is like family. But after a new colleague, 36M, joined, things went from friendly to flirtatious. And I'm now dealing with the fallout of rejecting him. I 24F, work at a small but very close-knit company. It's honestly the best job I've ever had, not just because the work itself is fulfilling, but because of the people. We're like a little family. Everyone is supportive, and we all get along great. Every Friday, someone organizes an activity, movie nights, board game evenings, or even just grabbing drinks after work. We also do casual outings, sometimes a few of us will grab coffee after hours, and I love being part of such a fun, easygoing group. 2 months ago, Jake, 36M, joined our team. He's new to the city, having moved here for the job. From the start, he was really nice and eager to fit in, though he seemed a bit shy at first. Since I'm naturally outgoing, I made a point to include him in our group activities and help him get settled. He seemed to appreciate it and quickly became a regular at our Friday events. It turns out we have a lot in common, similar tastes in music, movies, and even hobbies. We both enjoy hiking and are big on true crime podcasts, so we always had something to talk about. Our personalities clicked, too. He's funny, sarcastic in just the right way, and easy to chat with. Now, I'm married to my high school sweetheart, Dan, 26M. We've been together for nearly a decade, married for 2 years, and I couldn't be happier. My coworkers all know about Dan because I talk about him pretty often. I have a picture of us on my desk, and I've even brought him to 1 or 2 company events. Jake, however, must have missed the memo. He joined after the last big event Dan attended, and I guess I hadn't mentioned Dan in conversation with him. About a week ago, Jake messaged me outside of work hours. At first, it was work-related, so I didn't think much of it. He'd ask questions about projects or clarify tasks, which seemed innocent enough. But then the messages became more casual: "What are you up to tonight?" or "Any plans for the weekend?" I thought he was just being friendly, so I responded in a polite but non-committal way. I figured he was just lonely, being new in town, and I didn't want to come off as cold. Then, a few days ago, he asked if I wanted to grab dinner after work. At first, I assumed he meant a group outing, so I replied, "Sure, who else is coming?" He clarified, "Oh, just us." I thought we could hang out, just the 2 of us. That's when it hit me. I froze for a moment, then sent back, "Hey, just so you know, I'm married." I even added a smiley face to keep it light, assuming he'd feel a bit awkward but would back off. He responded almost immediately, "Oh. Okay." I thought that was the end of it. It was a little weird, but no harm done, right? A couple of days later, Jake started acting different. He was still friendly, but there was this undercurrent of something else. When we were in a group, I'd catch him staring at me or trying to steer conversations toward me specifically. He even started dropping subtle comments about how much he appreciates me and how amazing I am as a person. Then came the kicker. During one of our coffee outings, he casually asked, "Are you happy in your relationship?" I was stunned. I laughed awkwardly and said, "Yeah, of course I am. Dan and I are really solid." Jake nodded but didn't drop it. "It's just that, you and I get along so well. I feel like we understand each other on a different level, you know? Sometimes I think people settle too early and don't realize there's someone out there who could be an even better match." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I tried to brush it off with a joke, "Well, I definitely didn't settle. Dan's my best friend, and we're really happy together." He smiled but didn't look convinced. "I just think you deserve someone who really sees you for who you are." Since that conversation, I've been walking on eggshells around Jake. I don't want to make a big deal out of this because we work together, and I don't want to create drama in the office. At the same time, his behavior is making me uncomfortable. He hasn't outright said anything inappropriate, but the implications are there. He keeps finding excuses to talk to me alone, whether it's about work or something casual. During group outings, he positions himself next to me and tries to monopolize my attention. I've started mentioning Dan more often in conversations, hoping it'll remind him that I'm very much taken. But it hasn't stopped him from making those subtle comments about how rare connections like ours are or how lucky Dan is to have me. Part of me wonders if I'm overreacting. Jake hasn't been overtly disrespectful, he hasn't said anything explicit or done anything that crosses a clear line. Maybe he's just socially awkward and doesn't realize how his comments come across. But another part of me feels like he knows exactly what he's doing. He seems to be deliberately pushing boundaries. It's making me second-guess every interaction, which is exhausting. I haven't told anyone at work about this because I don't want to create tension in our little group. Jake is well liked by everyone, and I don't want to come off as paranoid or make things uncomfortable for him or for me. I'm torn. On one hand, I feel like I should just let it go and hope he moves on. Maybe he's just lonely and misinterpreting my friendliness. On the other hand, his comments about my marriage and his attempts to spend time alone with me feel off. Should I say something to him directly? Should I bring it up to someone at work? Or am I overthinking the whole situation? Update, things escalated and now I don't know what to do. Okay, so a lot has happened since my last post. I didn't expect things to blow up like this, but here we are. I've been sitting on this update for a few days, trying to process everything, but I still feel like I'm in some weird nightmare. Buckle up, because this is a mess. After Jake's "Are you happy in your relationship?" comment, I tried to keep my distance. I stopped responding to his casual texts and avoided being alone with him at work or during group outings. But Jake didn't take the hint. If anything, he doubled down. A few days ago, he caught me as I was leaving the office. Everyone else had already gone, and I was packing up my stuff when he showed up at my desk. "Hey," he said, leaning against the partition. "Can we talk for a minute?" I hesitated. I didn't want to be rude, but my gut was telling me this wasn't going to be a fun conversation. Sure. What's up?" He took a deep breath, like he was about to confess some deep, dark secret. "I've been thinking a lot about what I said the other day, about your relationship." My heart sank. "Jake, I don't think." "Wait, just hear me out," he interrupted. "I know you said you're happy, but, are you really? Because I see the way you light up when we talk. I've never felt this kind of connection with anyone before. And I think you feel it too." I stared at him, completely floored. "Jake, I'm married. I don't know how else to say this." "I know," he said, his voice soft. "But marriages aren't perfect. People change. And sometimes you meet someone who makes you realize what you've been missing." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My voice got a little sharper than I intended. "Jake, you need to stop. This is inappropriate. I've been nothing but friendly, and if I gave you the wrong idea, I'm sorry, but this isn't okay." For a second, he just stood there, staring at me like I'd slapped him. Then he laughed, an awkward, bitter laugh. "Wow. Okay. I guess I misread things." He stormed off before I could say anything else. The next day at work, Jake wouldn't even look at me. He avoided me in meetings, didn't say hi in the morning, and acted like I didn't exist. It was awkward, but honestly, I was relieved. I figured the situation had resolved itself, and we could go back to being professional. But then the rumors started. One of my coworkers, Amy, who I'm pretty close to, pulled me aside during lunch. "Hey, can I ask you something?" she said, lowering her voice. "Sure, what's up? Did something happen between you and Jake?" My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "Well," she said, glancing around to make sure no one was listening, "he's been saying things. Like, that you led him on and then shut him down out of nowhere." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "What? That's not true at all." Amy nodded quickly. "I didn't believe him. I know you're married and all, but I thought you should know. A couple of people have been talking about it." Later that evening, I was at home venting to Dan about everything. He was, understandably, furious. "You need to talk to your boss," he said. "This guy is spreading lies about you. It's harassment, plain and simple." I was hesitant. I didn't want to escalate things further, but Dan was right, Jake's behavior was crossing a line. I decided to sleep on it and see how things played out at work the next day. But then, Jake took it a step further. Our team has a group chat we use to coordinate Friday activities. That night, Jake posted a message. "Hey, just throwing this out there, does anyone else feel like our team dynamics have been a little off lately? Maybe we should talk about setting some boundaries to keep things professional." It was such a blatant dig at me that my jaw dropped. A couple of people replied with confused comments, asking what he meant, but Jake didn't respond. The next morning, I went straight to my boss, Karen, and told her everything. I didn't want to involve her, but at this point, I felt like I didn't have a choice. To her credit, she took me seriously and promised to handle it discreetly. That afternoon, Karen called Jake into her office. I don't know what was said, but when he came out, he looked furious. He grabbed his stuff and left without saying a word to anyone. Thought that was the end of it, until I got a text from an unknown number later that evening. "You didn't have to do that. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I just thought you deserved better." I blocked the number immediately, but I've been on edge ever since. Dan wants me to file a formal complaint with HR, but I'm worried it'll make things worse. Jake hasn't been back to work, and I don't know if he's been fired or if he's just taking time off. Part of me feels guilty, like I overreacted by going to Karen. But another part of me knows this isn't my fault. Jake crossed the line, and I had every right to stand up for myself. The problem is, I don't know how to move forward. Things at work feel tense, and I'm constantly worried about what Jake might do next. What if he comes back and tries to make my life even harder? What if he starts spreading more rumors? I feel like I'm stuck in a lose-lose situation, and I'm exhausted. I just want things to go back to the way they were before Jake showed up. Is that too much to ask? Update number 2, things took a darker turn. Okay, so I didn't expect to be posting again so soon, but things have gotten, well, worse. I thought I'd gotten a handle on this situation, but I was wrong. Way wrong. So, I mentioned before that Jake didn't show up for a few days after his talk with Karen. I was hopeful that maybe he'd be let go, or at least that the tension would ease. I kept my distance, kept my head down, and tried to focus on work. But then, today, Jake walked back into the office. The moment I saw him, I could feel my stomach tighten. He didn't look happy. Actually, he looked like a man on a mission. He didn't even acknowledge me when he walked past my desk. Instead, he went straight to Karen's office. My heart sank. I have no idea what they discussed, but it couldn't have been good. I've never seen Jake this angry before. He's usually so calm, but today he was visibly agitated. Later, during lunch, I overheard Karen talking to Amy in the break room. "Jake has requested a transfer to a different department," Karen said. "Apparently, he doesn't feel like he fits in here anymore." I felt a sharp pang of guilt. Was this my fault? Had I pushed him so far that he felt like he had to leave? Was I the one who'd ruined everything? After work, things took a terrifying turn. I was in the parking lot, walking to my car, when I saw Jake. He was standing by his car, staring at me. The way he was looking at me made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. "Hey, can we talk?" he said, his voice surprisingly calm. I froze. "Jake, I don't think there's anything left to talk about." He stepped closer, and I took a step back. "You really don't get it, do you? I didn't want to cause trouble. I didn't want to make you uncomfortable. But you forced my hand. Now, I'm stuck here, and you've ruined everything for me." I felt my heart race. "Jake, you're making this worse. I've told you a million times to stop. Please, just leave me alone." He didn't move. "You've made it clear that you don't want me around. But let me make one thing clear, if I'm going down, I'm taking you with me." I couldn't even process what he was saying. What was he implying? Was he threatening me? Before I could respond, he turned and walked back to his car, but not before giving me one last, long look that sent a chill down my spine. I didn't know what to do. I immediately called Dan, who was furious. "This is harassment, and you need to report it to HR, like, right now," he said. "This isn't just some awkward work situation anymore. You're being threatened." So, I did. I went straight to Karen the next morning. I told her everything that had happened in the parking lot, about Jake's behavior, his threats, and how I felt unsafe. Karen immediately took me seriously, and I could tell this was a whole new level of seriousness for her. She said she would bring it up with HR, but I could see the wheels turning in her head. "I'll make sure this is handled," she promised. "You did the right thing by coming forward. We'll take care of it, and we'll make sure you're safe." I don't know what exactly happened behind closed doors, but later that afternoon, Karen called me into her office. Jake was no longer with the company. They had apparently had a serious conversation about his behavior, and it became clear to them that he was unfit to continue working there. I didn't know all the details, but Karen mentioned that he was escorted out of the building by security. At first, I was relieved. Jake was gone, and it seemed like the nightmare was over. After Jake's departure, things at the office were tense. Everyone was wondering what had happened. Amy came up to me and asked, "So, what really went down with Jake?" I didn't know how much to say, but I told her the basics: how Jake had been making me uncomfortable, how he'd been spreading rumors, and how I felt threatened. "I don't want to sound dramatic, but I think it's good that he's gone," Amy said. "It was getting weird around here. He was saying stuff about you and started acting out in meetings. It was like he was on some weird crusade to get you to leave your husband." That made me shudder. But the weirdest part? Jake has been posting online about it. A mutual friend of mine from another department saw his post on LinkedIn. He had written something along the lines of, "Sometimes, the truth is a dangerous thing. People think they know you, but they don't. I was just trying to help someone see the light, but they rejected it. Maybe it was for the best. Or maybe it was all just a game to them." The post made no sense, but it made me feel sick to my stomach. Was he trying to make himself out to be the victim? Was he trying to justify his behavior? And who knows what else he could be saying to other people behind closed doors. So, here I am, still processing everything that's happened. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells around the people at work, even though most of them have been supportive. I'm trying to focus on my job and move forward, but the whole situation has left me shaken. I keep second-guessing myself. Was there something I could have done differently to avoid this? Did I lead Jake on in some way without realizing it? I'm trying to trust that I made the right choice by speaking up, but part of me is still scared. What if Jake comes back to cause trouble? What if he tries to ruin my reputation or make me look bad to other people? For now, I'm focusing on my family and the support I have at home. Dan has been my rock through all of this, and I'm so grateful for him. But I won't lie, there's still a little part of me that's scared of what Jake might do next. I just hope he stays far, far away. I guess that's all for now. I'll update if anything else happens, but for now, I'm just trying to get through the day without looking over my shoulder every 5 seconds. Update number 3, things are finally calming down. So, I wasn't sure if I would be posting again, but after some time to process everything, I feel like I can finally share that things have started to settle down a bit. It's been a wild ride, and I'm still working through a lot of the emotions, but I'm getting there. After the whole mess with Jake, I felt like I was walking on eggshells at work. The gossip, the rumors, it felt like they were everywhere. But, slowly, the dust started to settle. People moved on. Jake's departure was a big relief, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the damage had already been done. The way he twisted the narrative, making me out to be the one who overreacted, still lingered. But, as more time passed, people started to realize that his version of events didn't add up. HR did a thorough investigation, and while they couldn't take formal action since Jake had already quit, they did provide me with support. They made sure the situation was documented, and they assured me that they would do everything they could to prevent anything like this from happening in the future. Honestly, that helped a lot. At least I knew they were taking it seriously. The office atmosphere has definitely shifted, but in a more positive way. Most of my coworkers, especially Amy, have been really supportive. I've had a few more casual conversations with people about what happened, and I've been able to explain things without feeling like I'm under a microscope. There are still a few people who are hesitant to talk about it directly, but they've been respectful and have generally moved on. The gossip has mostly died down. It's been nice to finally feel like I can focus on work again without the constant undercurrent of tension. Amy actually told me that she had a talk with a few of the people who were questioning me during the whole ordeal. She said she made it clear that I wasn't in the wrong, and that Jake had crossed a line. It felt good to know that some of the people I work with have my back. Honestly, didn't expect to hear from Jake again, but a couple of weeks ago, I got a message on LinkedIn from him. It was short and kind of cryptic. I hope you can find peace in the life you've chosen. I was just trying to help you see things differently. I'm moving on, but I'm sure you'll always remember me in some way. It left me with a weird feeling, like he still didn't understand what he did wrong. But at this point, I'm just glad it was a short message. I don't even want to entertain the thought of engaging with him. I'm done with him. For now, things are peaceful. I'm still adjusting to the aftermath, but I'm no longer constantly on edge. Work feels more manageable, and I've been able to focus on my projects without the distraction of Jake's manipulations. It feels like things are finally calming down. I don't know what Jake's next move will be, but for now, I'm not worried about it. I've learned that I can't let his actions define my happiness or my future. I'm taking things one day at a time and trying to leave the past behind. I'm still grateful for all the support I've received from my coworkers and my family. I've learned a lot about myself in the process, and while I wouldn't wish what happened on anyone, I do feel like I'm coming out of it stronger. Thank you, all, who offered advice, support and encouragement throughout all of this. Even when everything felt overwhelming, your comments helped me realize I wasn't alone in facing situations like this, and there is a way out of this vicious cycle.